We continue on with our NHL season preview series as we look at teams in the Metropolitan Division. Today we look at the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers are a team coming out of an 8th place finish last year. Can they be more competitive? Will they have a shot at the playoffs? We'll review the Flyers' changes and their expectations coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we look at the season preview for the Philadelphia Flyers. And in case you're new to this series, we're going to recap last year's results, both as a team and top individuals. We're going to take a look at the team's cap space, how the team has changed over the course of the offseason, who's new, who's no longer with the team, any rookies that could have an impact, any extensions that might make sense or newsworthy notes through the year, any trades we might see. We'll look at their projected lineup, and then the top questions facing the team going into the season. Further ado, let's recap the 24-25 season for the Flyers, and we'll get into what to expect for the coming year. The 24-25 campaign for the Flyers didn't have great results. 76-point campaign, 33-39-10 record, last place or 8th place in the Metropolitan Division overall. And of course, it brought an end to the time of head coach John Tortorella. I know going into the tenure with the Flyers, the expectation was that over time, maybe he would work his way into a management job or some sort of other role within the team or something like that. But that did not materialize after this tenure was brought to an end. Tortorella was essentially just completely let go from the organization with 9 games left, with Bradshaw taking over. So, of course, the Bradshaw era only lasted, like I said, 9 games. He had a 5-3-1 record. Not much pressure down the stretch. Knew they were out of the playoffs. And, well, there we go. They finished with 232 goals for, 24th best, They were 28th in goals against, 283. So lots of things to work on. Certainly lots of things within the roster that needs to be fixed. We saw a coaching change, as I mentioned. Of course, Rick Tocchet comes in as a new head coach now after leaving his tenure at the Vancouver Canucks. Of course, Tocchet, a former Flyer, and he can bring out of this roster. Of course, towards the end of the season, they did make some significant moves as well. We saw some trades, including trading Scott Laughton to the Leafs. Kuzmenko moved on after a brief tenure there. And, of course, they had the big trade with the Calgary Flames, which sent Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee the other way as well. So lots of change throughout the season. And then we'll talk about the additional changes that happen in the offseason. Now, of course, this team has been out of the playoffs for 5 consecutive years. Of course, under the Danny Briere era here, for the first time in a long time, acknowledged they needed to go through a rebuild, and there would be some pain. So we got Danny Briere and Keith Jones leading the way now. Have been there for a few years, and for the most part, I would say that I like the direction that they're taking the team, but they do have a ways to go, I think, to get it to where they want it. The top scorers last year include Travis Konechny leading the way at 76 points. Matvei Michkov with 63. Of course, in his first season, Sean Couturier, 45 points. Owen Tippett, 43. Tyson Forster, also with 43. Going into the season, they don't have a ton of cap space, which isn't really ideal for a team in their situation. They show on Puckpedia with a 23-man roster of having $1.79 million. They could easily get that up to about 2.7 if they drop a player down to the minors. They do have a few players starting the year injured as well, which will give them some flexibility with long-term injury reserve if need be. But of course, with the new rules, not really going to have a huge impact throughout the entire season. Now, let's take a look at how the roster has changed throughout the course of the offseason. We've already talked about some key members that were moved before the deadline. Since then, we've lost Olli Lexell, who signed with the Ottawa Senators. Jacob Peltier's moved along. Ryan Poehling, of course, was involved in the trade to bring in Trevor Zegras, and Ivan Fedotov was in since moved to the Columbus Blue Jackets. New to the team this year, they brought in Christian Dvorak as an unrestricted free agent from Montreal. Trevor Zegras was the big addition coming over in a trade from the Anaheim Ducks. Dennis Gilbert, Noah Juleson, both defensemen signed as UFAs. And Danny Vladar gets a pretty lucrative contract to come in and be part of the goaltending tandem. I'm not sure if they see Vladar more of a backup or more of a 1A, 1B scenario, but based on his contract, I think they're going to give him a lot of opportunity to play a decent amount of games. As far as, some rookies here that could make an impact on the roster this year, you get a few guys, including Jet Lushenko as a player to watch. Been impressive since he's been drafted, really. Alex Bump and Nikita Grabenkin, I suspect, will definitely play games this year as well. Contract extensions that could make news throughout the Flyers season, there's quite a few. Hard to say how many of these get done. Some of them might wait to see how the season goes or push it along further because there's not really a huge rush. But we have Sammy Urson, the other goalie on the team, is ready for a contract extension. And on the blue line, Jamie Drysdale, who they picked up, of course, from the Ducks, and good buddies for Trevor Zegras. I'm sure they're happy to be playing back together again. Bobby Brink, and of course Trevor Zegras himself, who came over from the Anaheim Ducks to Philly, is in the last year of his contract, and Nick Delorier. So obviously a lot of those guys, they're all eligible. Doesn't mean they're all going to get signed. Some of them, there's not much of a rush. Some of them, they can kind of wait and see. And to some degree, they're probably going to want to see how the season goes before they make any big commitments to some of them. So we'll see. As far as trades that we could see, well, if the Flyers are again under the playoffs, I would suspect that newly acquired Christian Dvorak, who only signed a one-year deal, very well could be a player that's moved at the deadline. We'll see how they feel about him. Maybe he's a player they decide to keep around and build into the core guys. It's hard to say, but where he signed such a short-term deal, he could be a player that's brought in, hopefully value increase, and then flipped out. And that Nick Delorier, I mentioned him as a contract extension, but he could also be a trade piece. I mean, he is there as a guy who's one of the better fighters in the league, willing to drop the gloves, look after the young guys. So they may decide to keep him around, and they may decide that there's a high value for him to move, so they'll have to wait and evaluate that later on in the year. Looking at their projected lineup going into this season, I suspect obviously a couple of things that are going to be easy. One being the goaltending. The tandem will be Sammy Urson and Dan Vladar. On the back end, you're likely going to see your top four is pretty easy to predict. I think you're going to see York Sanheim, Cam York, Travis Sanheim be your top pair. Jamie Drysdale, Nick Steelers likely will round out your top four. And then you're likely going to have Zamula and Juleson, I suspect, probably be your third pair. Gilbert will be in the mix there as well. Rasmus Ristolainen will be on the IR to start the season, so he will not be in the mix. Once he does, I suspect he'll get into that, obviously on the right side of the blue line. The forward group will start with Sean Couturier playing with Tyson Forster and Travis Konechny, likely to be your first line. I suspect we're going to see a lot of Trevor Zegras and Matvei Michkov playing together, likely with Owen Tippett. So, I mean, Michkov and Zegras are both highly skilled wingers, great with the puck. Tippett's more of a shooter, so, I mean, that could be a really good line. We'll have to see. I know Zegras and Michkov have spent a lot of time working together in the preseason, so we'll see how that chemistry continues to build. I suspect your third line is going to be Nova Cates with Grabenkin and Brink, perhaps, is the way things project. And then a fourth line of Dvorak with Hathaway and probably a player like Alex Bump getting an opportunity, as I mentioned, to be there. I'm not sure exactly what they do with Jet Lushenko. It is possible Lushenko gets a shot to play some games early on before they decide where he's going to go on a longer-term basis. But, I mean, he has certainly been a player that will be in the mix for sure and will be a big part of their future. Just a matter of when they decide to give him that longer rope to play in the NHL. Top questions facing the team. The big one for me is what kind of chemistry can we get out of Zegras and Michkov? It could be a blessing in disguise here for Zegras to get traded. I know he might not have been thrilled about it in the beginning, but I think there's aspects about Philly he'll like being reunited with one of his best friends in Jamie Drysdale, but I do think him and Michkov might complement each other extremely well. But that chemistry could reignite Zegras' career. It could help Michkov as well. They might drive Rick Tocchet a little crazy at times as well. Obviously, they're not exactly big physical players, which I know he tends to. I'm not saying he doesn't like skill players, but I think he might have more of an appreciation for a player who forechecks harder and just plays a different style. But you have what you have, and you need a bit of everything on these teams nowadays to be at the top of the league. So we'll see what happens, but the chemistry that those two build, to me, is a big storyline to follow within this team, and will play a big role in their success or lack thereof. And do they have enough secondary scoring to win enough hockey games is the big question. Obviously, you look at that bottom six, how much scoring are you going to get there? That will play a huge role in how well they do. Is a goaltending a little bit more stable? Can Vladar come in and kind of help stabilize things with Urson? I mean, last year wasn't great between the pipes. They need to be better in that regard. Also wonder about some when it comes to some players and their health, like Sean Couturier, obviously, has battled a lot throughout his career. A healthy season from him would be great. Even Drysdale's missed a decent amount of time over the young career as well. So, you can't predict injuries, you can't predict health, but they do have some guys that, just have a lot of injuries in their past. So, obviously that can play a role with things. You're going to have a guy like Konechny trying to get on Team Canada here as well for the Olympics. That'll be, extra motivation for him like he needs it. So, ultimately, this Flyers team for me, I think it will be better than last year. I think they can be more entertaining. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to get as far up the standings to get into the playoffs. So I do think Rick Tocchet's got work to do. I think he can bring out a lot within his roster. I think he'll bring a pretty good defensive structure. So I do expect them to be a little tougher to play against. I do expect them to put up a fight a little bit longer. But I don't know that they have what it takes to get all the way up. But I can see them at least moving a few spots within their divisional rankings for sure. But let me know your thoughts and expectations on the Flyers for the 25-26 season, and we'll discuss it in the comments. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.